Begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Samachei Amud Beis. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Kosuv Boy, it's written in a star, Zuzin Meya, that the money that was borrowed, the amount is 100 zuz, the Inon Silin Esrin, which is 20 sloyim. Now there's a discrepancy here, because 100 zuz is 25 sloyim, not 20. 20 is only 80 zuz. So how much could the lender collect with such a star? Ein loy elo esrin zuzin. So with such a star, we take the lower amount of what's written here, and he could only collect. Ein loy elo esrin. Sorry, you read ein loy elo esrin. Can only collect 20 slayim, which is 80 zuz, not more. Now the point of this is based on the concept hamoitzim v'chavere olavaraya. You're using a star that has two different expressions, so. Yad balashtar la tachtaina. The Gemara is soon going to use that expression also, that the balashtar always has the lower hand here because he's trying to take money out of the borrower. Similar halacha, zuzin meya. If in the star it's written two expressions, it says that it's 100 zuz, the inon plus in silim, which is 30 slime. So here's also there's a discrepancy because 30 slime is 120 zuz. So again, we take the lower amount. Ein lo ela mona. You can only collect with this star a mona, which is 100 zuz and not 120 zuz. How about a star where the number, the amount is erased or it's not written? It says in the star kesef zuzin the inun, kesef of silver zuz, which is, and it doesn't say the rest. So how much? What's the amount? V'nimchak, it's erased. Ein pachas mishnayim. So he can collect kesef zuzin, but the minimum of what that would be, because it's in plural, so it's 2. Kesef silin, the inun, and then the rest is erased. V'nimchak, ein pachas mishtayim. So you can collect the minimum, which is 2. Darkainis, another kind of coin, the inun, the darkainis, and it which is whatever amount, and it doesn't actually say, because v'nimchak, it's erased. Ein pachas mishtayim. So you can't collect more than 2. It doesn't get less than 2, but it can't collect more than 2 either. Another case, Kosuv Boy, a star that it's written in it, Milmaila, in the top of the star where the loan is written, it says Mona, that the amount that was borrowed is a Mona. Umulmata, and then further down in the star, where the information is repeated again, Masayim. There it says that the amount is 200. Or Milmaila Masayim. On the top it says 200. Umulmata Mona. On the bottom it says the amount of a Mona. The halacha is hakoil hoylech achar hatachten. We always follow what it says in the bottom of the star because we say that whatever is written in the bottom is what the person concluded he wants the amount to be. What was written on the top, he may have thought before, but what he wrote in the end afterwards, that's his final decision. Now this is only to exclusion to the bottom line. We already had before in the Gemara, the Shitta Achreina, the very last line of the star. From that we never learn new information. So it's what's written further down on the star, but not the bottom line. So why is the information written on the top if it's being repeated later in the star? If there's one line from the bottom of the star, which is erased, then you lamed min elyon. Then you will learn from what it says further up in the star. This is the girsa that we have here in our Mishnah. The Rashbam actually is not guided this word shim timochik. The word timochik, the Rashbam is guided over here that we learn from the top of the star in loy kosav. If there's a discrepancy, just one letter between the bottom of the star and the top of the star, then instead of saying that it's a contradiction and we follow the rule of going according to what it says in the bottom of the star, in such a case, we say that probably what was written on the top of the star was just a shorter version, or what's written on the bottom is a shorter version from what was elaborated already upon on the top of the star, so we could compare them. The Gemara will explain this. Tana Rabbanon, in a Braisa we learned other cases where a person writes in the star and it's not exactly clear what it is. So the Bach takes out the word Omar. It says in the star kesef, that silver. What's kesef? What's that amount? Ein pachis midina kesef. So kesef means a silver dinner. If it says kesef dinrin, or v'dinrin kesef, or it says dinrin kesef, so here it's plural, ein pachis mishnei dinrin kesef. So the amount is no less than 2 silver dinrin. Now, if the star says kesef bidinrin, kesef in dinrin, or of dinrin, then I say ein pachis mibishnei dinrin dehav. What this is really saying is that this is no less than the value of 2 golden dinarim, kesef. in silver. So it means that what was bar, what you have to pay is silver, but it's silver in the value of 2 golden dinarim. That's why it's kesef bidinrin. Okay, that's this brayse. Like Gemara explains this brayse. Omamar kesef ein pachas medina kesef. When it says kesef, we say it means the coin of a dinner of a silver. But how do you know? Ve'ein menascha. Maybe it just means a piece of silver. Amar Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Lazar says, you're right. We must say the kesef b'matbeya, that the star says kesef, but it also says a coin of kesef, and therefore we know that it's going to be a dinner. How do you know a dinner? Frek the Gemara ve'eim priti. How do you know that it's such a large coin, a dinner of kesef? Maybe it's priti, maybe it's other kinds of smaller amount of coins and the currency that are also made with silver. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa answers, Ba'asra, it's in a place, the leisagi priti de kaspa. There's no other lower amount of coins that are made in silver. The dinner is the one that's made in silver, so we know that it's a dinner. Ton Rabbanon, and another brayse we learned, and this brayse is very similar to the previous one, but here it talks about gold. The hav, if it's written in the star gold, it doesn't say what. Ein pachas medina the hav. That means that it's a golden dinner. The hav dinrin or v'dinrin the hav, whether it says first the hav and then dinrin or the opposite. So in this case it's plural. Ein pachas mishnei dinrin. So it's no less than 2 dinrin of the hav of gold. Now, if the star says the hav bidinrin, gold of a dinner or in a dinner, so how do we understand this? Ein pachos mibishnei dinrin kasef. So this means that in this star it's no less than the amount of 2 silver dinarim, the value of 2 silver dinarim, the hav, but in gold. In other words, you have to pay gold, but in the value of 2 silver dinarim. Similar, mamash, like what it said in the previous brayse. So again, the Gemara goes through the same thing, explaining this brayse. Mamar, so the Tan in this brayse said, the hav, that ein pachas medina the hav. The hav means no less than a golden dinner. How do we know? Ein menasche, maybe it's just a piece of gold. Amar Rabbi Lazar, the kasav matbeya, because it's written that it's a matbeya, it's a coin, so we know that it's a golden dinner. Ein periti, maybe it's another kind of lower kind of a coin. Who says it's a dinner? And it's the Gemara, periti, the davele of the inchi. People do not have, there's no coins that are made in lower amounts. The coin that there is in gold is a dinner. So therefore it's a golden dinner. Now it said in the brayse, Zahav b'dinrin, what does this mean? Ein pachos mibishnei dinrin kesef Zahav. So this is going to be silver, but in the amount, it's going to be gold. You're going to have to pay with gold, but in the value of 2 silver dinarim. That's the meaning of these words. So the question is, how do we know this? Maybe it means much more. Maybe when a person says Zahav bidinrin, what it means to say is Dava priche betrei dinrin. Dava kama. Maybe it means pieces, broken pieces of gold, in the amount of two broken pieces of gold, in the amount and the value of 2 dinarim of gold. Maybe that's what it means. The value of whatever 2 dinarim, whatever the value is of 2 golden dinarim. So that value of 2 golden dinarim in broken pieces of gold. How do we know to say that it means much less than that? That it means that it's silver in the amount of, again, how do we know to say that it's only gold in the value of silver? That's the brayse is teaching this, right? When a person says Zav b'dinarim, it's gold, but only in the value of silver dinarim. Maybe it's 2 gold, it's gold in the value of broken pieces of gold. And 2 dinarim, gold dinarim, not silver. And says the Gemara, Omer Abaye, so Abaye said about this, Yad balashtar ala tachtaina. The reason why we translate these words this way is because we can't prove one way or another, and therefore we say that the one that's holding the star has the lower hand. He's going to have to prove that it means the higher amount to be Maitzi Mama from someone. So therefore here, when you see this expression of Zahav b'dinarim, you say that what it probably means is gold, but gold in the value of 2 silver dinarim. Okay, that's why we say this. Okay, so now based on this, the Gemara asks, if this is the way we explain this last case in this second brayse, so now let's go back to other cases that were mentioned here in these 2 brayses. Now here, as you see, the Gemara here is in parentheses. There are a few ways in the Rishonim how to learn this Gemara, but the Rashbam and the Rishonim are guided in the Gemara. You have over here the girsa that's brought on the side of the Gemara. Did they bring here the girsa? The other Gemara that I was using here. You have it here in this Gemara. You have it in the Argos with Tziyunim. Okay, so the Gersa here is Ihachi. I don't know, some Gemaras bring it in different places, but over here in this Eis Vahada Gemara, it brings it in Eis Beis. Ihachi Reisha Nami. If over here you're saying that when you use the expression of Zav B'dinarin, what it means is gold in the value of silver, because Yad Balashtar Tachtaina, so why shouldn't we say similar regarding the previous cases that we mentioned before? Now, which previous cases would this be referring to? So the Rashbam says it's referring to the previous Braisa. In the previous Braisa, there was a similar case where it said that the person said, wrote in the star, Kesef B'dinarin. So what did we say it means over there? Over there we said Kesef B'dinarin, that the word dinarin there means golden dinarin. That you have to pay silver, but in the value of golden dinarin. Why are we saying in the value of golden dinarim? Maybe it's silver in two dinarim of the value of silver of 2 silver dinarim, or like the value of 2 broken pieces of silver. Why are we saying that it means golden dinarim? We should apply the same rule of Yad Balashtar la Tachtaina. And similar, the Rashbam actually says that also in the second Braisa here, where it said that when the person writes in the star, Dahav Dinrin or Dinrin Dahav, that this means 2 golden dinarin. How do we know? Maybe the word dinrin over here means silver. And he said gold. Maybe it means gold in the value of silver dinarim. Just like we say over here in the last case of this second Braisa, that because Yad Balashtar Tachtaina, we say that it means the value of silver dinarim, and maybe in the other cases before, we should say the same thing. So Rav Ashi says there's a difference. And we have to read the Gersa of the Braisa before differently. Reisha, in the Reisha before, in the previous Braisa, the Kosav Dinari, over there, it did not write to have dinrin with a nun at the end, but he actually said dinri. Dinri means gold. And that's why we say that he's going to have to give him 2 silver dinarim in the value of gold dinarim, of gold. That's when you say dinri. Sefer, the cost of dinarin. In the Sefer, in the last case where we said that Yad Balashtar Tachtaina, that it means the value of silver dinarin, because it says dinarin with a nun. There's a difference. There's a difference in these 2 expressions. The Rishayim actually explained the reason for this difference is that usually dinarim are silver, and therefore the stam dinarim means silver. But when you want to write gold dinarim, so you spell out that it's unique, that it's gold. So you write dinrei zahav. So when you see the word dinrei without the nun at the end, dinrei is usually a word that goes together with gold. So even if you didn't write dinrei zahav, but dinrei in itself means gold. That's why, so in the Reisha, that's how we have to read it, and therefore over there it's clear that it means gold. So the Gemara brings, where's the source of this? So Minot Taimre, from where we know to say this? The Shani, ben dinrei li dinarin, that there's such a big difference between the term dinrei, which means gold, and dinarin, which means silver. Tanya, or as the Gersa here is supposed to be the Tnan, we learned in a Mishnah in Taris, Sechta Taris. So the Mishnah there says as follows: Ha'isha, a woman, shahayu alea safik chomish leidos, that there's a suffix regarding 5 births, whether she has to bring a carbon for these births. A woman, when she gives birth, has to bring 2 karbanas, a carbon chatas and a carbon oila. And until she doesn't bring the carbon chatas and the carbon oila, she cannot be tahir from her tumah. She won't be able to eat kachim and so on. So here we're talking about a woman that miscarried 5 times, and if therefore each time there was a suffix whether it was a real birth that she's obligated to bring a carbon or not. So it's a suffix. So she has to bring, in such a case, mevi a carbon echad. She brings once the karbanas that she has to bring, 1 chatas and 1 oila, and vayicheles bezvachim. And after that, even the 1 carbon, she's able to eat already from karbanis, even though there's a suffix that she may have to bring more, but after she brings the first time, she can eat karbanis, and ve'ein ashar aleh chayva. And now the rest of the times, the other 4 times that there's a suffix, is not going to be an obligation. She does not have to bring those karbanis at all. Now the point here is as follows: just like a woman that is tameh and she has to be matayr herself, so she goes to the mikveh once. Even if she has a cause of tumah many times, but she goes to the mikveh once and that's matayr her. So over here also regarding a woman that has to bring karbanis to be matayr herself, even though there might be 5 times that she's obligated to bring karbanis, she brings once the carbon and then she could eat kachim. And the reason why she doesn't bring all the other times, which are a suffix, is because there's a very big problem here with this carbon. She's bringing these karbanas, it's birds. It's 1 bird or 2 birds, depends if she's rich or poor, but it's you're bringing a bird here. Now by a bird, you don't do a regular shchita. What's done is malika, which is usually a nevela. So what are you going to do with this carbon? After you shecht it, because it might not be even an obligation of a carbon, the kainim can't eat from this, so you're going to have to throw it out. So usually by Kachum, we don't want to do such a kind of thing. So the only reason that they allowed her to bring it the first time is because it's a suffix. If we're not going to allow her to bring it the first time, she's going to be stuck. She won't be able to be Matar herself from her Tumah. But to bring all the additional times, that she doesn't have to. That's in a case where it's a suffix. Similar also, if it's a case, no, the Mishnah continues, chomesh leidos vadois. There were two cases of it, right? There's chomesh leidos and also chomesh zivois. Did I skip that case? I'm not sure if it's a similar, same halacha regarding chomesh zivois. When there's a woman that has 5 times that she's a suffix, if she's a zav, right? The halacha regarding a zav also depends on the calculation of exactly when she saw the blood. Minatayre, the way the calculation by a woman goes is there's 7 days of nida and 11 days of ziva. So she has to have a count exactly of when she saw this blood. If she doesn't know, so then it becomes a suffix, and then the same halacha will apply as I explained it before. Okay. Now, if it's a case where she gave birth 5 times, vadois, definitely. So she's chayav these karbanas 5 times. Chomesh ziva is vadois, and she's tameh as a zav 5 times, which we definitely know. So mivia carbon echad, she brings once a carbon, vaycheles bezvachim. After that one time, she could already eat karbanis, as I mentioned before. Just like by the mikveh, she goes once and she becomes tar. By karbanis, it's the same thing. But now v'hashar aleh chayva. But the rest is still going to be an obligation. For each birth, for each ziva, she's going to have to bring the other karbanis. Mai said there was once a story, v'amdu kinim b'Yerushalayim, that the kinim, the birds that had to be bought for this carbon, which is the kinim is one for a chatas and one for a naila, so their price skyrocketed. It was bedin rezav. Just to buy this cane, it costed a golden dinner, which was very expensive. So Amar Rav Shimon Gamliel wanted to bring the price down. So he said, Hamoin azeh. It's a language of a shvua. He's swearing, and he says in this dwelling in the Beis Hamikdash, Im alin alayla. If I'm going to go to sleep tonight, chiyu b'dinorin, until the price is going to come down, and it's not going to be any more a gold dinner. It's going to be worth a silver dinner. What did he do in order to bring the price down? Nichnas bezdin. He went into the bezdin and v'limei, and he taught as follows: Ha'isha shahayoleh chomesh leidos vadois. A woman that gave birth 5 times, or chomesh zivas vadois, or she was a zava 5 times. Mevia carbon echad, she brings 1 carbon for all of them. V'cheles bezvachim, and she eats now karbanis. She's already tired. Ve'ein ashar aleh chayva, and the rest of them are not an obligation for her to bring. This is a third opinion. Another opinion, a second opinion about this. It wasn't mentioned before, that even a woman that gave birth 5 times or 5 zivos, after 1 carbon, it covers it all, and you don't have to bring any other carbon. So once he said that, what happened? V'omdu kinin baybayayim b'rivasayim. The price of the birds that have to be brought for this carbon, the two for chatas and ayla, went down, and it was now a quarter of a silver dinner. So the price dropped drastically after he passed this din, because now a lot of women that wanted to bring many of the karbanas for many of the births or zivais didn't need anymore. So the price dropped. So what do we see here? In this,
He changed the din again.
You pass like this halacha. Okay, so what do you see here? The Gemara is bringing this Mishnah, the entire Mishnah it's quoting, but it's all to prove that the term dinrin, here it says in this Mishnah, dinrin, stam. What was dinrin stam? Silver. When it says dinrei zahav is gold. So even though we don't really see here that the word dinrei itself means gold, but we see here that dinrei zahav is gold and dinrin stam is silver. So from that we understand that when you write in shtar just dinrei without the word zahav afterwards, but it really belongs together with the word zahav, and therefore it means gold. That's according to the Rashbam. Other Rishonim are actually guided in this Mishnah that you take out the word zahav, so then it's exactly like what we're trying to prove. Even without the word zahav, it says it clearly that dinrei means gold. So the Gemara weiter. What did it say in the Mishnah? Kasuv molmayla v'chulu. If you have a star and on the top it says one thing, and on the bottom later in the star it repeats the information. It says differently. You always follow by what it says at the bottom. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa Yilmei that Tachtin Mina El Yain Ba'ois Achas, that what it says in the bottom one thing and the top of something else. So like it said in the Mishnah, that if it's just a difference of one letter, then we are going to say that we learn from what it says in the top of the star to explain what it says at the bottom. Only if it's one letter a difference. Avoloi b'shtei esis, but not if there's a difference with 2 letters. Such a case, I'm not going to say so. And the Gemara explains, Kagoin chanon mechanoni. If on the top of the star it says Chanoni, that's the person's name. On the bottom of the star it says that his name is Chanon. So it's just missing one letter. So in such a case, I'm going to say that what was written on the top of the star was, or what was written at the bottom of the star rather, Chanan was written at the bottom of the star, that was just a kitzer. The name was written bekitzer from what was written on the top of the star, and there was one letter that was left out. Or Vanan Manani, the same thing, another example, Anan from Anani. Okay, so now the point of here is, usually the rule is we always follow what's written at the bottom of the star, because we say that probably the person along the way changed his mind, and when he wrote on the bottom is what he really meant. But in such a case, what we say is, don't look at it as a contradiction. Mistame, what happened is, what was written at the top, written at the bottom is the same thing. Elamai, what was written at the bottom, he left out one letter just to be mekatzer, just to shorten what was already written at the top, and therefore it doesn't have to be a contradiction, so you could learn one letter from the top. But once it's a difference of two letters, then I consider it to be a contradiction. Then we go back to the rule that we follow what it says in the bottom of the star. Okay, but the Gemara questions this. Why, when there's a difference of two letters, you say that it's definitely a contradiction? I can't learn the bottom from the top of the star, because in such a case I say, Dilma Misrami Shem Ben Arba Isius. What happens in a case where you want to write a name that's only of 4 letters, and now if you're only going to write 2 of the letters of the name that has 4 letters, so then you're writing only half of the name. So it's not logical to say that you're going to write and be mekatzer and leave out half of a name. So if you see 2 letters missing, it's not logical to say that this is a kitzer of the same name that was written before. It looks like it's a different name, it's a different person. So ihachi, if that's the case, if that's the svara behind this, say the same thing. Oisachas nami. If there's a difference just of 1 letter, I should also say that there's a contradiction here, because Dilma Misrami Shem Ben Shtei Yosis. What happens if you have a name which is only 2 letters? And if you only write 1 out of the 2 letters, so then that means you're only writing half of the name. So just leaving out 1 letter is also something which shouldn't be looked at as just a kitzer. It's not mistaver that a sofer would be writing and just rewriting half of a name. So why do I look at it this way? Ella, so the Gemara says, we must say that the svara here is a bit different. Shtei oisius, when you see that there's a difference in 2 letters between what's written on the top and the bottom, haina taime, the reason is because Dilma Misrami Shem Ben Shalish oisius. What's if you have a name that's 3 letters, v'havale ruvadishma, and then leaving out 2 letters is actually leaving out the majority of the name. The svara here is not the fact that a sefer would not leave out half of the name. Maybe that we would say that he would leave out half of the name. And therefore by 1 letter, I will learn out the bottom of the star from the top of the star. But if you leave out 2 letters, then I could say that in a case where there is a letter of 3 a name that is of 3 letters, so then there's two letters that are being left out. That means you're leaving out the majority of the name, and therefore, in such a case, it's not mistaver that it's the same person and it's just a kitzer of the same name. But it's actually logical to say that there's a discrepancy here, and therefore, there we go back to the rule that we follow what's written at the bottom of the star. So, the Mefarshim here explain that the case here, the way this plays out is, there's different versions of how to learn this, but the way the story over here of what the Gemara is talking about would play out is, if you have this document of a loan that, let's say this fellow by the name of Chanan is holding in his hands, and Chanan says, you borrowed money from me. And the borrower says, no, I never borrowed money from Chanan, I borrowed money from Chanani. And what happened? I paid already Chanani, and I had the star already, because I paid him, and the star fell out of my hands. And you, Chanan, found it, but you never lent me money. That's how the story plays out. So in such a case, because the discrepancy is only 1 letter between Chanan and Chanani, we say that the person that's holding the star is right, that you did actually borrow the money from him. But if the difference would be 2 letters, so then the borrower can't claim, oh, I really borrowed the money from someone else, and I already paid it, and you found the star that I lost. In such a case, we're going to say that again, if it's 2 letters, then he could claim. That it's a different person. Okay, I don't know if I confused Akapana, but the point is clear over here. Yeah, that's how this whole story plays out when he's holding the star. And okay, so Gemara weiter. Omer Rav Papa, and Rav Papa said, Pshitali, this is simple to me. That if you have a star, at the top of the star says one thing, and the bottom of the star says something else, seifel mulmaila. In the top of the star it says seifel, which is some kind of a cup. Okay, and now the kefel mulmato. On the bottom of the star, it's written the word kefel. Now kefel means something else. Kefel means, Rashbam says, a talus that a person folds up So what is it that he borrowed? Or what is it that he has? Maybe as a pekadon from this person. Is it a seifel or a keifel? So like we said before, we follow what it says in the bottom line of the star or further down in the star. But Rav Papa asks, what's if it was written the opposite? Keifel milmaila. The word keifel was written above in the star, and the seifel milmata. And the bottom it wrote seifel. What am I going to say? Why would I say over here it's any different? Because maybe michashin luzvov. Do I say that we're concerned that maybe what happened over here is a fly came and sat in that one letter there, really, just like in the top of the star, it says keifel, which has that foot of the kuf that goes down. The same word was written in the bottom of the star as well, but a fly came and sat on that leg of the kuf and erased it, and also filled in a little bit that open space on the top by the kuf, and therefore now it says seifel below, but it really is supposed to be keifel above. So am I concerned that that's what happened? Oiloi, or I'm not concerned that this happened. Teiku, so this remains unresolved. Okay, one more piece here about this. The Gemara says, "Ahu da have a kasav bay." There was a star that it was written in it, Shis Meya v'zuzah, 600 and a zuz. But it didn't say 600 what? And a zuz we know, but what's the 600? Sholcha Rav Shravye kamei da Abaye. So Rav Shravye sent to Abaye to ask him about this. Do I say Shis Meya isteri? Is it 600 isteri, which is 600 slayim, and v'zuzah plus a zuz? Or Dilmor, maybe it means Shis Meya priti. Vizuzi, or maybe it means 600 prutis, which is the smallest type of coin, together with a zuz. Amalei, so he answered him. Abai answered him. Dal priti. This concept that you're saying that maybe it means a priti, that's a mistake. The lekasvi b'shtara. People don't write such a kind of number, 600 prutis. Da'asuchi misachin lahu, because if it's prutis, people combine it together to a higher denomination. For example, if you borrow, right, like pennies, if you borrow from someone $5, you're not going to write 500 pennies. You're just going to write $5. So over here as well, shismei is not going to be pennies or prutis. Rather, so this is a continuation. Sorry, the Gemara says asuchi misachin lahu. The person is going to usually combine it. Zuzi. Instead of writing 100 pennies, you write one zuz. It's actually the Rashbam here says that it's not 100 pennies for a zuz or 100 prutis. It's kuf tzadik beis prutis. It's 192 prutis. So then you write a dinner, and that's the amount for a dinner. So what's the story of this? So my yomrit, what are you going to say? Shis meya astire v'zuzi. You wanted to say that it means 600 slayim plus a zuz. So he said, no, we don't say that. It's not going to be slayim and a zuz. Rather, we're going to say yad balashtar ala tachtaina. The balashtar has the lower hand, and therefore we say it's less than that. And the Rashbam's pshat on this is that it's going to be 600 zuz plus one, 601 zuz. That's the amount that I mean. Slayim would be much more, but it's 601 zuz. That's how we translate the meaning of this shtar.
Even though it says